You worked in the prisons. How's the mental health situation of prisoners or people that have been incarcerated?
Sure. I have to just warn you here that, I think in as much as working in prison was an experience that I appreciated, it's an experience that I don't think I want to ever live again, because it's a whole other world, It's a whole other world where mental health, a lot of the time, the resources are there, right? A psychologist at the prison that I was working at, I think there was 4 of us as psychologists, including an educational psychologist who was assigned to work in the juvenile center. So the resources are there, but the willingness of the inmates to actually engage genuinely in psychotherapy and getting psychological help is quite minimal. We do have those few cases where people are actually on medication, right? For whatever condition that they have in the prison system, they do receive their medication. So I think in that regard, the resources are available, but they are not being utilized by the inmates. There's a sort of reluctance in engaging with the emotional part of you, which I think in a way it makes a lot of sense, because when you are in prison, you are less concerned about your emotions. That's what I found. People are less concerned about their emotions, but more concerned about serving their time, more concerned about surviving actually in the prison system, more concerned about their protection, their safety. So if I found that a lot of the time, if I can't offer, something solid for the inmate, something solid maybe being that I'm going to write a recommendation for their parole recognition, they won't engage. So it's very difficult to actually gauge where exactly are our offenders when it comes to mental health. I don't think even to this day that I can genuinely say this is a clear picture of somebody who is in prison mentally. It's because they don't show up like that. When they show up, most of the time they show up with a mask, basically, And if it's not a mask, it's how am I going to benefit from this? So are you going to recommend that I do get parole? So are you going to, it's almost like a transactional relationship more than a therapeutic relationship. So it's very difficult to definitely say prisoners are mentally healthy or mentally unhealthy. What I can say is the resources are there, it's available. It's just now the willingness of people to actually make use of what is available.
Based on the availability, what interventions have been done then just to change the status quo a bit? I understand the importance of survival and them obviously looking out for their lives in the physical sense. But in terms of mental health, trying to promote it in such dire circumstances, what interventions were there while you were working there?
So we used to do different things, right? Most of them, we would obviously get them as referrals from the parole board to say, please see this person for psychotherapy sessions. Let's see how they are mentally. Let's see how they are emotionally. Before we can actually consider them for parole, right? But what we did and what is still going on in the prisons is that a lot of groups are being run, okay? So there is, for example, entry-level groups where people that have just been recently sentenced, they are basically, they are obligated to attend this adjustment group that teaches them how or what is expected of them and how they can reach out for help and, so sort of making them aware of what is available in the prison and what they can do to make their prison term more bearable, for lack of a better description. So that was the adjustment group for incoming ones that have been recently incarcerated. But there's also, I think specifically, I recall I was running a group for people who were serving life sentences, right? So these are people that have been or are going to be in prison for a very long time. So we don't know when they are going to get out, if they are going to get out. So that was basically a support group. Né? And surprisingly, we used to call them lifers. The lifers were more receptive and more ready to come in for the sessions than any other group, like the group of people that have been sentenced for 5 years, for example. Those ones were less willing and, you know, to come through. The lifers were emotionally mature, if I can put it that way. There was a level of maturity emotionally that was involved there. So running a support group for them was something that was actually quite positive and quite engaging and, you know, growthful on both ends. But there was also other psychoeducational groups. Most of the work that is done there is done in groups. So psychoeducational groups on how to deal with trauma, how to cope with substances. Substances was a big thing, you know, how to cope with substances, how to deal with stress, when to know if you're not okay. So there was a different intervention, or they still are in different interventions at any given point in time. So the efforts are always there. I think that is the one thing that I was, you know, very proud of. You know, we always speak of what is missing, what is missing. But I think that in that scenario, I think I recognize some of, you know, the work that our government is doing, you know, in terms of getting professionals involved and trying to rehabilitate these people that have been incarcerated. So, like I said, resources available, willingness,
not so much. Interesting.